Hey everybody, welcome to Big Balls Fantasy Football, the show with powerful picks, sexy super fans, and that's really fun. I'm your host, 27-year fantasy veteran, Greg Reifsteck.
And I'm your co-host, Jenilee Boric, and together we are the beauty
and the beast
of fantasy football experts.
As we say every week, we are huge Bear fans, and we have our Santa hats on there, and 'tis the season. I hope everybody's having a great holiday because the Bears are not. The Bears need a gift. And the gift they need is a brand new kicker, don't we, Jenilee?
Yeah, Robbie Gould is definitely having the worst year of his career so far, that I can remember at least.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't know if it's just that he's older and he needs to be done playing, or if there's something else going on. I don't know if there's an underlying injury, maybe that's not being said that we don't know about, or maybe something's going on in his personal life.
Yep.
I know everyone thinks that, athletes are just athletes and that's all they do, but they are people too.
Yep.
And a lot of times, your personal life can affect your work. So, I don't know what it is. I'm obviously speculating, but he definitely is not having a good year. So
yeah, Robbie Gould, if you haven't kept up at recent Bear events, blew a game-winning kick in the Niners game the week before, and just this last week blew a 50-yard kick?
50-yarder.
50-yarder to possibly tie the game for us. Both of them strangely going right off the side of his foot. If you want to ask conspiracy theory Greg the Beast here, he's on the take. And I know Jenilee won't agree with me on that one, but I'm putting it out there. Hey, Robbie, I know you're getting late in your career and you need some quick cash, but come on, man. Be cool and at least let us finish the season looking halfway decent. Anyway, I got that off my chest. Anyway.
And he also has a new holder, though. So that's another thing to look at.
Interesting.
A new long snapper and a new holder. And that's, again, probably something that most people take for granted in a sense. But, every piece of the puzzle matters. So
Agreed. I mean, our special teams have just been really all over the map anyway. So now this is breaking down. It was a pretty pathetic game. We lose to the Redskins, for crying out loud, who are leading their division, which is like the worst, dumpster fire in football. We made Kirk Cousins look like a stud for 300 yards, a passing touchdown, a rushing touchdown, and an interception. But especially, and I know you want to talk about this, Jordan Reed. Holy cow. What an insane performance by him. Huh?
Yeah, absolutely. And he was my pick last week for tight ends, telling you to start him, put him in your lineup, and he definitely had a good game.
Yep. He lost his mind. 9 receptions for 120 yards and a touchdown. That's why we tell you to play him. That's why it was that's why this week we are doing studs versus duds again. We're putting you in different scenarios. You are now in week 15 of your fantasy season, and it's week 15 in the NFL. You have to start worrying about matchups, and this is what we're going to do this week again, and we're going to do it next week again in week 16. Just every matchup counts. You need to weigh them all because it's one and done, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. This is the time that it matters. And with the Bears, at least, the middle of the field is our problem. That's why I said, go ahead and start Jordan Reed. Because we have some problems that inside linebacker, our outside linebackers are playing a little bit better.
Yeah.
We also have 2 rookie safeties playing. Antrell Roll just went on IR today. So they are putting him on injured reserve for the rest of the season. So for sure, if you have a matchup against the Bears, those players are probably going to exploit the middle of the field, and you should start those players. But yeah, one and done. I know I already started my playoffs in one league, and it was a very difficult first week, which I made it through.
Yay!
Made it through to the next round, but it was a little bit nerve-wracking. So yeah, this is the time to do it.
Tell us a little bit about it. So that was in your all-girls league?
No, actually, that was in your work league.
Oh, in the work league. Oh, well, yeah. Sometimes it comes down to Monday Night Football, and sometimes you got to sit there and, chew your nails probably a little bit or try not to. Yeah, it gets agonizing when you're down by 15 or down by 20, and you think I can just make that up like that. And
yeah, I was down by like 33 points. I had two wide receivers left that are both very talented wide receivers, so it was a very possible situation, but it could have gone either way very easily. So got through it though, and so I'm on to the next round in that one.
Yeah, so we have that in my work league, but in the biggest balls of them all league, our show league, I get to play Smash, who's been sitting on top of the league all season, and you get to play Kash.
Yeah, and Kash has been scoring like crazy too. So I think, between the four of us, I really think anyone can win. And I think a lot of it is going to go off of matchups. So I know I have a couple really bad matchups this week for my wide receivers mostly. That's the position that's really tough for me. So, sometimes you just have to ride it out and just say, you know what? I've played this person all year. They've done really good, or they're a star person, and I think they can get through this rough matchup. And other times you might have to put someone in that doesn't typically get as many points or isn't as consistent, but has a really good matchup. So those are tough calls to make sometimes. Yeah,
I know they always say, numbers don't lie, but sometimes they do. Sometimes, you just have to put a good player in up against a hard defense. And that's why they're pros. That's why they're making that marquee money.
Right.
Because that's what they're going to do for you. And you realize that early in the season. That's why a lot of players like Prost and even you. I'm more a switch 'em up person playing the matchups, whereas you guys are a little more, hey, these are our stars. That's why we drafted them. They're going to score for us every week. And with my philosophy, I made it into the playoffs. And with your philosophy, you made it in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And we're both going to win, and then we're going to play each other next week, so it's going to be great.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, that's right. The Bears, let's just really quick. Cutler, 315 yards, 2 interceptions, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. It was all on the kicker. Our offense was a little mediocre, but we did make, once again, Cutler made the drive. Got to give him the credit for that.
Yeah, we struggled in our running game a little bit. The Redskins are better at stopping the run than the pass. So that was just one of those things that was going to happen. We weren't running the ball fantastically, but we were moving the ball, and again, just not scoring touchdowns.
Yeah.
So.
And I'll get into, in my studs versus duds, the whole running back situation for the Bears, so I won't dig too deep into that just yet. Zach Miller is coming on. Zach Miller, 5 receptions for 86 yards and a touchdown. Now that Bennett is on IR, I mean, he's our guy, and he's looking like a stud. So I looked, and he's a huge pickup this week, and people are really banking on him.
Absolutely. And I know Alshon had a really good game as well. I was playing against Alshon in the league that I had to win.
Yep.
So that was a little bit stressful because every time he would do something good, as happy as I was for the Bears, I was very frustrated in my fantasy playoffs.
I was looking over at her, and every single time he'd get a big play, I'd see her head go down like, oh, God. Yeah, he ended up with 107 yards and a touchdown. Yeah. I needed him in my win, so I'm pretty happy about that. So we talked about the Big Balls update, and so what you need to do is go out and get the Big Balls Fantasy Football app. I know it's near the end of the season, but tell your friends. We do player updates every single Sunday. We've been keeping you up to date on that. We also have blogs. The guys are going to be doing their playoff blogs again this week. And also, of course, we just have all the information that you need, and you can watch our shows. Am I missing anything on the app? Yeah,
just you can send us your lineup questions. Of course, like we said, we changed it up in the playoffs, and we're doing studs and duds. But you have specific matchups that you might be thinking about and that you want to ask our advice on, so you can go ahead and send us those. And, of course, you can access all of our social media. BigBallsFantasyFootball.com is our official website. You can get to our Facebook page, our Twitter, and all of our other stuff.
And your favorite, the Instagram.
Yeah,
Instagram. Pictures. Okay, next we will have studs versus duds. Stay tuned.
welcome back to Big Balls Fantasy Football and our studs and duds for Week 15.
Mm-hmm.
We do things a little bit differently here during the playoffs, so happy playoffs to all of you that made it into your playoffs.
You made it. You're either in round 1 or you're in round 2, but you made it, so keep going, and we're going to give you some help here to hopefully get you to the next round.
Absolutely. I know I have one of my playoffs. I'm already 1 week through. The other 2 leagues start this week. So, again, we are here to help you with some of these matchups that you might be questioning who to start. So, let's get right into quarterbacks.
Definitely.
And I'll start us off here. So, here we have quarterback Eli Manning versus the Carolina Panthers or Big Ben versus the Denver Broncos. And these are 2 very tough matchups, very tough defenses to go against.
Yeah.
But I am actually going to go with Eli Manning in this one. Again, 2 matchups that are tough, but I'm going with Eli. Let's first talk about these number 1 wide receivers that both of them have.
Oh, yeah.
They both have spectacular number 1 wide receivers.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, Big Ben has Antonio Brown, who has 100 receptions for 1,397 yards on the season and 7 touchdowns. And Eli has Odell Beckham, who has 85 receptions, 1,320 yards, and 12 touchdowns on the season. So the big difference that I'm seeing with those 2 right there number-wise is just touchdowns, the 7 touchdowns compared to the 12 touchdowns. Also, Denver is who Big Ben is going up against, and Denver is just shutting down wide receivers altogether. So they've only allowed 2 wide receiver touchdowns and 2 wide receivers to go over 100 yards in a game so far. So that's why I know Big Ben has more weapons than Eli has at wide receiver, but Denver's defense has been so strong against wide receivers. I just don't like it. And the Panthers, on the other hand, have allowed 9 wide receiver touchdowns. So they've definitely allowed more wide receivers to get in the end zone. And again, they've only allowed 2 wide receivers to go over 100 yards. So
it's tough.
It is. It's a tough thing, but I trust Beckham in this one. Antonio Brown is incredibly talented. I have each of them in different leagues, but I just think Beckham is the guy you have to go with. He's crazy good. The Giants' running game has also struggled, so we know Eli's going to throw the ball a lot. And Eli himself has 28 touchdowns and only 10 interceptions. So those are impressive numbers. Again, when you look at that ratio that I like to look at, that 2-to-1 ratio, touchdown-interception ratio, Eli's having a great season. Big Ben, of course, was out some this year with injuries. He has 15 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. So even when he's played, he's struggled with those interceptions a little bit more. So in this one, I go Eli. I also trust Odell a little bit more in this one, and I'm going to start it off that way.
I have a whole other reason. You can just switch the frame over here. I have a whole other reason for not taking Big Ben, and I'm throwing A.J. McCarron over there in my match scenario. Well, it's a risk, yes, but this is why we're Big Balls Fantasy Football, and this is why I'm talking about this. A.J. McCarron, of course, is filling in over there for the redheaded wonder. He messed up his finger, and it's like, okay, what do I do? This guy played for Alabama. He's playing against the odds. There hasn't really been a successful quarterback that's come from Alabama that's played as a rookie in a while. But, I mean, Andy Dalton's out. So you just need to go with him. Reason being, they're going up against the Niners. We couldn't play against the Niners, but I think he can play against the Niners. The Niners give up the 14th most points to quarterbacks. And as you said, Denver's defense is just lights out. They're lights out against wide receivers. They give the least points to quarterbacks. They're completely lights out against them. As you were already talking about, Denver's D, no 300-yard games. They've made 11 picks, as we're talking about. This is why we're talking to you. You're going to look and go, season pro, I got to put Big Ben in. Of course I'm going to put him in my playoffs. That's the reason I drafted him. it's a whole other scenario when you hit the playoffs. You need to play the guy that's actually going to get you some points. A lot of weapons over there. I mean, have you heard if Effort's going to be in this week? I don't think so.
Yeah, he's still going through the concussion protocol, so it's looking like Eifert might be out.
Yeah.
But that, we'll know more as of Wednesday, Thursday situation.
But still, coming off a concussion, woozy, not playing up to 100%, but you still have A.J. Green out there. You still have Marvin Jones. You have all these weapons, and this kid's going to be hungry. I think he's going to snag the opportunity, and I think he's going to, take the reins, and I think it's just a strange situation. This is right from my lineup. I'm going to have to gamble in one of my leagues with him, and that's just the way it's going to be because you can't play Big Ben up against Denver. You're just not going to get the points.
Yeah, and it's an interesting situation because both the Bengals and the Steelers are going for making the playoffs and, trying to get on a playoff run here. The Steelers are basically trying for a wild card, but the Bengals don't have the division locked up quite yet.
Nope.
So, it should be something. That Denver defense is tough for sure.
Yep. So, all right.
Want to move us on to wide receivers?
Definitely. So I did a little bit something weird and funny here, but not too hilarious. You always run into situations in the playoffs, especially late in the season, where you have sometimes veteran players getting phased out for younger players or the reverse. In this case, you have Michael Crabtree on the Raiders, and you have Amari Cooper. And Cooper, of course, was the stud most of this season. 3/4 of the season, he was getting you points. No doubt about it. He has slowed up as of late. And then Crabtree over here, the seasoned veteran, has been losing his mind. You also have the situation with this week, the Raiders are playing Green Bay, and their top cornerback, Sam Shields, went out with a concussion last week. Another concussion situation. Will he be back in time? The signs are pointing more towards no than to yes. Concussion protocol, everybody thinks, well, it only takes a week and they'll be back. Doesn't mean they're 100%, and actually about 60, 70% of the time, they don't make it back in time for the next week.
No.
So you're looking at this changing of the guard. A little side note, we're dealing with this on the Bears right now as well, as I was talking about in the top of the show. Jeremy Langford has been stealing and vulturing touchdowns from Matt Forte. I put up with that last week. I was lucky to get a touchdown out of him, but his yardage was only at 59 yards for Forte, and it's because Langford's getting a ton of touches right now. And when especially a team like the Bears that's now playing for a draft pick instead of playing to win,
right,
they're going to run Langford, and they're going to run even Kadeem Carey like crazy and do this whole running back by committee because, as we were talking about earlier today, and we were talking about during Monday Night Football, we are trying to evaluate talent.
At this point for the Bears, it's about evaluating the younger talent.
Mm-hmm. So we're dealing with it on our team. You're dealing with it on the Raiders, and this is a case where numbers don't lie. Crabtree has gone nuts with 5 touchdowns in the last 7 games, 2 of them 100-yard performances. Cooper, in his last 4 games, has only managed 15 catches, 188 yards, and no touchdowns with 32 targets. That's a lot of drop balls. That's a lot of hitting it in the chest and not catching it. A lot of fundamentals not being played there, as Chucky likes to say on Monday Night Football, and I agree with him. So I think you got to go with the age here, and changing of the guard happens everywhere in the NFL. Yeah,
and like we talked about before, you have to win this week to move on. So you got to make those tough calls.
Let's get yours.
Yeah, I'll go on to my wide receivers. 2 studs right here. Wide receiver Jarvis Landry versus the San Diego Chargers, or Odell Beckham versus the Carolina Panthers. Now, both of these guys, depending on how your league scores, I'm in all PPR leagues, so both of these guys are studs. I'm lucky enough to have both of them on my same team, so that's a pretty good deal for me. But they both have really, really tough matchups again this week. Neither of them have a favorable matchup. So if you're questioning who to go with, if you have to pick, I'm going to pretty much have to start both of them because of my bench situation. But if you have to pick and you can only start one, I definitely go Odell Beckham in this case. The Panthers, let's just talk about the defenses they're going against. The Panthers are 5th versus the pass, so they're pretty tough against the pass. And the Chargers actually allow the 4th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers. So again, I know the Chargers have been a team that not many people are paying attention to because they pretty much suck this year. But their defense against wide receivers is pretty tough. Now, comparing the two, Landry has 6 touchdowns, including 1 return touchdown and 1 rushing touchdown. So the Dolphins use him in multiple ways. He's all over the field. He's not only used as a wide receiver. And Beckham has, again, those 12 touchdowns that I mentioned earlier on in the show. Again, Beckham does have more touchdowns. He's only used as a wide receiver. He's not used in all these other creative ways. But he is the stud over there in Giants land. Eli is always looking for him.
He's the one-armed bandit. Let's just be straight up.
He's so reliable. If you throw the ball pretty much anywhere near him, he catches it. It's pretty insane. Also, Landry could be a bit hobbled with looks like a knee type of thigh issue that went on. He was kind of sort of a little bit gimpy in Monday Night Football, kept kind of rubbing on it. They kept taking him out for different points in the series. So he's coming off a short week. He might not be at 100%. And Beckham, the downfall on him, even though I'm going with him, is he might have Josh Norman shadowing him all day. And Josh Norman has been a pretty great shutdown corner this year so far with the Panthers. So that might be a little bit tough for Beckham, but I think he can still get through it even if Norman's shadowing him. Let's just face it, Eli is a much more accurate quarterback than Tannehill. It's another reason you want an accurate guy throwing to your wide receivers. And the Giants are playing a home game versus the Dolphins playing on the road. And, of course, this game matters more for the Giants because of the fact that they are still in it and trying to win their division. So, again, both of these guys are studs. They both have hard, difficult matchups. But Beckham is the guy I think is just going to be reliable in this situation, and you can go with him.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, this Beckham is a stud.
He's amazing. It's pretty awesome having him. I will move it on to running backs now. So this one's kind of a fun one. Running back Jeremy Hill versus the San Francisco 49ers, or running back Melvin Gordon versus the Miami Dolphins. Both of these defenses are pretty doggone terrible against the run. The 49ers are the 31st versus the run in defense, and Miami is 30th versus the run. So these are two terrible, terrible run defenses. Now, these guys are interesting because both of these guys were expected to do a lot more than they did this year, fantasy-wise. And so you might be looking at it that you're like, well, I don't know. Neither of these guys have been crazy impressive this season. But these matchups are very good for both of them because these defenses suck against the run. So looking at yardage, Jeremy Hill has 604 yards. Gordon has 600 yards. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're right, like they're so close stat-wise. But touchdown-wise, Gordon has 0 touchdowns on the season, rushing or receiving. Hill has 9. So that's why I'm telling you, go with Jeremy Hill because he's at least been getting in the end zone. I know Giovanni Bernard is over there as well. He's sharing the backfield, all that type of thing. But this Niners defense is so bad that I think both Jeremy Hill and Gio are going to have pretty doggone good days against them. Also, I think the Bengals are going to have to lean on the run more with Andy Dalton being out. And this is a road game. So you don't want to put A.J. McCarron in a situation where he has to do too much on the road with the noise, with all that stuff that goes on. And I think they're going to really lean on their 2 running backs that are talented to get it done. And, of course, again, this is a situation that the Bengals are playing for much more than the Chargers are. So both of these matchups are pretty good for these running backs, but I think Hill is definitely going to get at least 1 touchdown. I think he's going to get you more yardage this week. So I actually might be picking him up in a league this week he's out there floating around just because of the matchup and play him just based off of this matchup.
You make up a fantastic point, and that is exactly what you do at this time of the season when you're in your playoffs. You look for players that have these fantastic matchups, and nobody has touched these players in 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And you just go snake
Sometimes
them out.
they're out there on the waiver wire.
It is just like what I did on Thanksgiving. What did I tell you to do? Play Matthew Stafford on every waiver wire practically. Everybody had given up on him. It was his matchup. It was his Thanksgiving game. 7 touchdowns. You're welcome. Anyway, Gordon has just been such a disappointment over there. So
I mean, the 0 touchdowns.
You're looking at A.J. McCarron. They're going to play a strategy where he will possibly pass to either one of them and get you some passing yards to Jeremy Hill. Gordon, he doesn't catch out of the backfield. They just pound him. They pound him. They pound him. That's why he doesn't have any touchdowns, because the Chargers don't get close enough to the end zone for him to pound it in.
And Hill, in that situation too, Hill is also the one that they give the ball near the goal line. Yep. They might use Gio to get him down there. They use Gio in the passing game a little bit more, but once the ball is down there, they use Hill to pound it in. So
yeah, definitely like your choice, definitely. So let's just talk about my new bromance, my new football bromance. You have your romances. I have my bromance with Gary Barnidge, who I picked up halfway through the season and has just been insane over there on the Browns, playing against the very, very tough Seahawks defense. But the Seahawks give up the 9th most points to tight ends. That's because they're very good over the top. They're not very good underneath. And then you have Richard Rodgers over there playing the Raiders, who the Raiders give up the 2nd most points to tight ends. Both these teams are, Oakland more so, are poor against the tight ends. And here's why I'm telling you about Barnidge, besides the fact that I think he's just wonderful and he's a stud. Johnny Football's back, and Johnny Football needs an outlet. And the last 2 games that Barnidge played with Johnny Football, he had at least 65 yards and a touchdown in each of them, in both of those starts. And I think that's just going to continue. They have a really good chemistry together. We all know Manziel, every once in a while he gets a good long one down the field, but it hasn't been quite happening. That's why when he had the disciplinary trouble, they didn't hesitate to take him out. But, I mean, they got so low they had to have Austin Davis in as their quarterback. So that's why I put Johnny Football in. That's why Gary's going to get the yards. The reason we don't go with Rodgers, and I've said this time and time and time again, well, first of all, Aaron Rodgers has not been playing great for you fantasy-wise, and I'm having to debate myself this week if I'm going to play him, I think against you, if I'm going to actually put him in, because he's just been not producing fantasy-wise. And the problem is he spreads the ball around too much. And just Rodgers hasn't been putting up the numbers. Rodgers has had 5 touchdowns in the last 6 games, but those are touchdowns. The yards have not been there. Barnidge has had the yards, and if you're in PPR, the amount of catches and the amount of yardage, that's where you're making, you can get into double digits really easy and get high in the double digits. When you're dealing with a guy that's only getting 40 to 50 yards a game and a touchdown, you're topping out about 10, maybe 11, 12 if you're lucky. And this is the playoffs. You want a team that's getting you 170, 180 points. You don't want to be putting up with your team getting 120. That's not going to cut it this week. So I love you, Barnidge. Keep up the good work. Hopefully I'll be back next week and play you again.
Yeah, I like that pick because he's been very consistent when he got hot, he's been consistently hot through the season. Yeah. So that's a good one right there. So my tight end, let's see what's going on here. Tight end Travis Kelce versus the Baltimore Ravens, or Delanie Walker versus the New England Patriots. I am going Delanie Walker in this one. He's on one of my teams, so come on, Walker, let's do this. Starting with those defenses, the Ravens give up the 2nd fewest fantasy points to tight ends, and the Patriots give up the 4th fewest fantasy points to tight ends. So again, both of these defenses are very, very tough against tight ends, and these are both 2-star tight ends. So this one can be a hard one to, where should I go? But again, I'm going with Walker on this one. Now, Travis Kelce, he has had double-digit fantasy points in only one of the last 5 weeks. So he has struggled very much in the last 5 weeks. And he's only caught 5 passes in the last 2 weeks.
Wow.
So again, he was really good for you at the beginning of the season.
Mm-hmm.
He was showing to be pretty consistent for you, but these last 5 weeks, he's really struggled. On the other hand, Delanie Walker has caught 15 passes in the last 2 weeks, and he's just targeted more.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus Mariota looks for him all over the place. We know the Titans have injuries at wide receiver, so they don't have any big-time wide receivers out there to help Mariota. So he's always looking for Delanie. He's targeted like crazy. He's catching a lot of what's thrown to him. And also, Delanie has 5 games of 90 yards or more throughout this whole season, and Kelce only has 1 game of 90 yards or more. So Delanie Walker, neither of them have gotten a ton of touchdowns. I think they each have 4 touchdowns on the season. But like you said, those catches, especially in PPR leagues, those catches and yardage is what you're looking for to help get you over the hump. And Delanie Walker is definitely doing that. So I'd say that he's the guy you have to go with this week, even though both defenses are very tough against tight ends. So let's just move it on and finish it up with defense. These are my 2 defenses. Now, I did this one because of the fact that sometimes in the playoffs, you are looking, because you're looking more so at matchups, you are looking, especially defensively, to go out there and maybe pick up a defense for only 1 week. So neither of these defenses are great defenses by any means, but they have pretty good matchups. So it's Tampa Bay defense versus the Rams offense, or the Bears defense versus the Vikings offense. In this one, I'm going Tampa Bay. No one probably has them on their team, but again, this is a great matchup for Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has more turnovers on the season than the Bears do. They have 11 interceptions and 10 fumble recoveries. Meanwhile, the Bears only have 7 interceptions and 7 fumble recoveries. That makes sense to us, obviously, because it's a Lovie Smith team there in Tampa Bay. He gets his guys to get turnovers. So Tampa Bay also has 3 defensive touchdowns on the season. The Bears have none. So again, if they're getting those turnovers for you, they're maybe getting pick sixes, they're maybe getting a fumble that they're running into the end zone, but you have a chance for Tampa Bay's defense to score, which helps you out a lot. And we're going to look at these 2 offenses that these defenses are going up against. The Rams offense is absolutely horrible. They only score an average of 16.2 points per game. The Vikings aren't super great on offense either. They score an average of 19.8 points per game. But that Rams offense is just horrible. I know Tampa Bay's defense has not played great the last 3 weeks or so, but they should be able to stop this offense that can't get going no matter who they play. And we talked about the Bears are in evaluation mode at this point. Our safety Antrell Roll is on IR. Pernell McPhee is doubtful for this week. So a lot of these veterans, a lot of our starters are now out and injured. They're putting in, we have 2 rookie safeties back there. You know, they're putting in guys to really evaluate the talent. And, you know, the Vikings and Tampa Bay are both playing for the playoffs. So no matter what, you know, the Vikings are going to want to win this game against the Bears to help them get in the playoffs. And Tampa Bay still has a chance at the playoffs. So, you know, it's time for them to go out there and help out their offense and defensively score some points, get some turnovers. And again, they're going against the Rams offense, which is terrible. So if you need to pick up a defense for just 1 week, Tampa Bay should get you some points.
Yeah, I mean, you're dealing with 2, you're dealing with the Vikings that are running, you know, a pound, you know, team, and you're dealing with the same case with who they're defending. Todd Gurley, we know, is a fucking stud, but they can't pass to anybody.
Yeah.
So they're both grind teams. Take advantage of it, definitely.
Yeah.
Great pick. I am going another direction and going with 2 very, very, very elite defenses. And which one do you put in this week? Which is the one that is going to have you get to the next round? Well, Seattle's playing the Browns. Horrible situation there. Cleveland gives up the most points to defenses. And then you have the Jets playing the Cowboys on Saturday night. Whoa. Talk about two teams, the Cleveland Browns and the Cowboys, as teams in disarray, don't know where they're going. And you have these huge, huge defenses playing these offenses that are just completely screwed up. Dallas gives up the second most points to defenses. You'd think, it's a no-brainer to go for Seattle and just say, okay, I'll put them in. And I have them up against you, Smash. I'm sorry. I'm going to get double digits. I'm going to beat you, Smash. I'm calling you out right now. But the Jets are just going to annihilate the Cowboys. They have Matt Castle still at quarterback. They have Des Bryant, who's only playing in the fourth quarter to try and get his incentive clauses. I have a girlfriend that is a Cowboys fan, so I've been forced to watch every Cowboys game this season. And I've really been analyzing Des. Des, you're lazy. You're lazy. He puts up all of his numbers in the fourth. In the last 2-3 games, he's had no catches in the first 3 quarters. It's just really bad. He's getting enough just to keep Jerry Jones, happy and but the Jets have been giving up a lot of points though. I'm seesawing back and forth on this. I'll tell you who I'm going with at the end. They've given up 24 points to Houston. They've given up 20 to Miami, and they've given up 20 to the Giants. That's the problem when you're dealing with defenses, is the points against. And I have to go with the Seahawks because the last 2 weeks they've just finally turned into the Legion of Boom and have been shutting down, and they've been giving up only a single digit in points to offenses. And the Jets have just been giving up the points. So that's why I'd have to swing it the one way. That counts against you. You sit there at the beginning of the game and you're like, oh, look, I got 15 points on defense. This is great. And then by the end of the game, you've got 5.
Yeah.
And sometimes a negative number, and you're like, whoa, what happened? What happened here? I was looking so good. That number at halftime doesn't mean anything. What it means is the number at the end of the game on defenses. And I think Seattle's is going to be much higher this week.
Yeah, and again, these are 2 teams playing for playoff spots.
Yep.
So,
great point.
Both teams, I think, need to come out there strong defensively, actually on all cylinders of the game to try to, win these games. So.
Yep. So we're at the end.
Yeah, that's it.
We're at the end.
These are our studs and duds for week 15. Good luck in your playoffs if you made it that far. This is the most exciting time of the year fantasy-wise. So all your hard work is supposed to pay off. Yep,
that's it. And, we both are in our fantasy playoffs, and that goes to prove, big balls were no joke. This is why we give you the picks, and this is why we've made it to this level, and we hope you've made it to this level with us. So, again, yes, good luck and good night.
Good night.